Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So apparently, yours truly has officially made it into the national media conversation again because now my tweets are being featured in an article on foxnews.com through Outkick Sports. And honestly, that is both hilarious and absolutely insane at the same time. Maybe I really do need to start paying closer attention to everything I post online because somehow these tweets keep ending up in major articles. And before we go any further, quick shout out to Evelyn. I check a lot of different sources throughout the day. Websites, media outlets, reporters, insiders, fan pages, all kinds of stuff. But there's so much chaos surrounding the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark right now that it's impossible to catch everything immediately. So thank you, Evelyn, for making sure I saw this, because this article is something else. Now, here's the thing that immediately jumped out at me while reading this. The headline talks about wild conspiracy theories surrounding Caitlin Clark being scratched from the Fever game, but when you actually read through the article and look at the tweets they're referencing, none of these are really conspiracy theories. Most people are simply pointing out contradictions in the Indiana Fever's story. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's called asking questions when the explanation doesn't make sense. The article says, fans float wild conspiracy theories after Caitlin Clark's latest scratch from Fever game, and then it follows that up with, Coach Stephanie White said Clark's healthy, but also cited back stiffness, sparking fan theories on social media. Okay, but right there in the wording of that sentence itself, you already have a contradiction. Because if Caitlin Clark is healthy, then why is she out with back stiffness? And if her back stiffness is serious enough to keep her from playing, then by definition, she is not fully healthy. This is exactly why fans started questioning the situation in the first place. Now, let's go back to how this entire thing unfolded, because the timeline here matters. Initially, Scott Agnes, who basically acts like the Indiana Fever's in-house messenger at this point, put out that Caitlin Clark was going to miss the 6th game of the season because of load management. And immediately, fans were confused, because Caitlin Clark has never been known as somebody who sits out games for rest. This is someone who played massive minutes in college, played through physical games, played through pressure, and built her reputation on always being available. Then, things got even weirder because not long before all of this, the Fever were literally showing Caitlin Clark dancing on the scorer's table during practice. The organization was basically presenting the image that everything was fine physically. So naturally, people looked at that and said, wait a second, if she's healthy enough to do all of this publicly, then what exactly changed? And then came the comments from Stephanie White. Yeah, she's healthy and we're not managing anything, White said pregame, while also saying Clark woke up stiff and sore and that the absence was part of a long-term plan. Again, those statements directly clash with each other. If this is part of a long-term plan, then that absolutely sounds like load management. There's no way around it. That is literally what load management is, resting a player strategically for future games. But if you're saying she woke up stiff and sore, then now you're talking about an actual physical issue. Maybe not a major injury, but clearly something that affected her enough to keep her out. The Indiana Fever tried to push both explanations at the same time, and that's why the reaction exploded online. And honestly, I still don't understand how the Fever organization continues to mishandle situations involving Caitlin Clark this badly. At this point, they should fully understand that every single move involving Caitlin Clark becomes national news instantly. Every update gets dissected. Every statement gets analyzed. That's the reality when you have the biggest star in women's basketball on your roster. Then, to make matters even worse, reports started coming out that Caitlin Clark would also miss Friday's game, which completely destroys the original explanation even more. Because now fans are sitting there asking, if this was just minor soreness, then why does it suddenly look more serious? So naturally, people started theorizing. People started questioning the timing. People started wondering whether the fever were hiding the severity of the injury or trying to avoid backlash over resting Caitlin Clark. And honestly, considering how badly the Indiana Fever handled controversies last season, fans are not exactly eager to blindly trust every explanation coming from the organization. That's the part Outkick is missing here. Most fans are not inventing crazy theories out of nowhere. They're reacting to inconsistent messaging from the Indiana Fever themselves. And honestly, the idea that Outkick is somehow protecting the WNBA is pretty funny, because Clay Travis and Outkick have been extremely critical of the league for a long time. So if even they are covering the situation, then you know the story has become massive. Said after the game, of course, and I played a clip of this, and White was very snippy. She did not like the question, and certainly didn't like the 2 follow-up questions. She's the only person I've ever heard even try to box White into an answer on uncomfortable questions. Not everybody that doesn't practice or gets a probable designation is on the injury report. That happens all the time. And she wasn't listed on the injury report earlier because we expected her to play. But again, we go back to this. She missed practice. Therefore, you knew something was up. And it is not a pass for a coach to say that 2 hours before the game is when you found out, when you also said Caitlin Clark woke up with back problems. And again, if she did, then yes, that is an injury. If she didn't, and she's healthy, as you say, then yes, that is load management. Of course, I talk hoops. Absolute big-time Caitlin Clark hater. Some suggested Clark being named Grand Marshal for the Indianapolis 500 angered the team, and they wanted to make a point. Others said White simply doesn't like Clark and the attention she receives. Play. Again, I have not heard a real person say some of the insane things these people are claiming are being said online. Maybe there are bots out there with 2 followers and a Twitter handle made up of random numbers saying crazy stuff. Sure, the internet is full of trolls, but actual fans? Real people covering the WNBA? I haven't seen it. And maybe that's why nobody can actually provide receipts for these claims, because the tweets and comments people are really making are completely different from what these defenders are pretending exists. Now let's talk about Jason Whitlock, because Jason Whitlock has gone absolutely hardcore on this story. He's saying the Indiana Fever and the WNBA have known Caitlin Clark has been dealing with an injury. And honestly, when you look at the evidence, that is not some wild conspiracy theory. Go all the way back to the first game. We saw multiple moments where Caitlin Clark was getting her back adjusted. We heard people around the team saying this was becoming the new normal going forward. I'm sorry, but no, that is not normal. As someone who has trained athletes and as someone who has played sports myself, there is absolutely nothing normal about a 24-year-old professional athlete constantly needing back adjustments if they are supposedly 100% healthy. That does not happen with fully healthy elite athletes, period. Then you have Christine Brennan stepping into this conversation, and what she said was completely reasonable. Christine Brennan said the story of the Fever and Caitlin Clark is simple. Caitlin Clark is bigger than basketball right now. She's an entertainer. People are paying money specifically to see her. Fans are treating these games like concerts or Broadway shows because Caitlin Clark is the attraction. And because of that, honesty and transparency matter even more, especially when attendance has already started dropping. Where exactly is the conspiracy there? There isn't one. Christine Brennan is making a completely fair point. Then there's Evelyn, who also made a point that a lot of Fever fans completely agree with. At this point, Fever fans are not imagining things. The optics around Caitlin Clark are terrible. Again, true. There are literally clips floating all over social media showing coaches grabbing Caitlin Clark by the arm during games, assistants yelling at her on the sidelines, and constant public criticism after games. Meanwhile, Stephanie White will individually praise nearly every other player on the roster, but whenever it comes time to talk about Caitlin Clark, suddenly it becomes we, us, and the group. That's not made up. Fans can literally watch the press conferences themselves. Then you have John Root from Outkick saying the Indiana Fever announcing Caitlin Clark was out only an hour and a half before tip-off was unacceptable. And honestly, he's right. Especially if this was supposedly a part of some long-term management plan, which Stephanie White herself referenced. If the team already knew there was a chance Caitlin Clark wouldn't play, why wait until the last possible second to announce it? That's why fans are angry. And again, nobody is saying some insane conspiracy theory. People are simply pointing out contradictions. Because on one hand, Stephanie White says Caitlin Clark is healthy and they are not managing her workload. But on the other hand, they're also saying she woke up with soreness and couldn't play. Okay, so which is it? If Caitlin Clark is healthy, then she plays. If she's healthy and sitting out anyway, then yes, that is load management. And if she's hurt, then she should have been listed appropriately on the injury report much earlier. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's basic logic. And another fair question people are asking is this: how does Caitlin Clark supposedly wake up with soreness, but Stephanie White doesn't know until 5 p.m. for a 7 p.m. game? Again, reasonable question. Then we get into the Tamika Catchings conversation. And once again, this isn't some personal attack on Tamika Catchings. She's a legend, nobody is denying that. But fans are noticing something. Whenever Tamika Catchings gets asked about Caitlin Clark, she almost always redirects the conversation back to the team as a whole instead of directly praising Caitlin herself. That's what people are reacting to. So once again, I ask, where exactly are the conspiracies? There aren't any. The Indiana Fever simply look completely overwhelmed by the level of attention surrounding Caitlin Clark. This franchise has never dealt with this kind of spotlight before, and honestly, it shows. The PR handling of this entire situation has been a disaster. They seem shocked that every decision involving Caitlin Clark is going to be analyzed heavily. But how could they not know that? Caitlin Clark is the biggest thing in the WNBA has seen in years. And now the biggest question moving forward is simple. What happens next? Is Caitlin Clark going to keep missing games? Is this going to turn into another lingering issue like we saw last season? Are we going to see her play 2 games and then sit one out again? Because right now, early in the season, it's starting to feel very similar. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, and I'll see you next time.